What is up, Houston, Texas fans? Mellow Mike here for the Bull Bash podcast at Houston, Texas fans. Thank you for joining me here on the show today. If you can, do me a favor, take a moment, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share this video with anybody you'd like. Now, before we get into playing a little bit of Nostradamus here and predicting the 2024 NFL schedule for the Houston Texans, we're going to talk about a couple of lines that keep popping up in national narratives. The first one is the Texans are going to regress because of an increased strength of schedule. I'm going to call bullshit right here. Okay, this team is one of the most talented teams in the National Football League. This team has a franchise quarterback. Right? For me as a fan, this is what I want to see. I want to see how my team stacks up against the best that the NFL has to offer. I want to see them play the Kansas Cities of the National Football League, the Baltimores, the San Francisco 49ers, the Detroit Lions. Okay? I don't want other fans having the excuse when they're talking smack about the Texans that we benefited from a cupcake schedule. To me, to see where my team stacks up against the best that the NFL has to offer, that is worth the price of admission. And the next one is the word sophomore slump being used with CJ Stroud. Okay, Texans fans, do me a favor. Get that word, that phrase, sophomore slump, out of your vocabulary. It's not happening. If you've watched CJ Stroud over the past season, he is not an average quarterback. And sophomore slump, that is just an excuse that you use when your team and your quarterback shit the bed. It's not something that you use when a franchise quarterback goes out there. If you have a franchise quarterback, one of these generational talents, that sophomore slump is not a thing. So I wouldn't even be worried about that. Now, we're going to get into the schedule here and look at week one. The Indianapolis Colts. This is going to be a revenge game in Indianapolis. The Colts, of course, they're going to be pissed off because they were 1 yard and a drop pass away from making it to the playoffs last year. And that did not happen. As a result, the Houston Texans sent them packing, and they were at home watching the playoffs. This early season matchup is going to be something to watch because it is going to be a real test of the Houston Texans run defense. We saw how Jonathan Taylor shredded that defense at the end of the year and how Anthony Richardson was pretty much doing the same thing at the beginning. So this is something that is really going to test D'Amico Ryans, Matt Burke, that revamped defensive line and linebacker core. Week 2, we are hosting the Chicago Bears at NRG Stadium. This is a primetime matchup on NBC. And let me tell you, it is, Caleb Williams versus CJ Stroud. I mean, CJ Stroud is going to get a tour of some of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And it is going to be something to watch. Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, primetime affair. The Chicago Bears have done their best to emulate what the Houston Texans did last year and put as much talent around Caleb Williams as they can. But for me, what it comes down to in this game is going to be coaching. The Houston Texans have the more talented roster. They have the better coach. With me, I do not trust Matt Eberflus with my franchise quarterback. And that's all that it comes down to. Next week, we go to the Minnesota Vikings. And this could be us seeing J.J. McCarthy. And, you're going to have that supporting cast of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. That's a pretty talented offensive setup for a rookie quarterback to be stepping into, especially one coming off a national championship game under Jim Harbaugh with the Michigan Wolverines. So, interested to see what that game ends up looking like. But, again, this is a game that the Houston Texans should win. Following that up, week 4, the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. Last year, the Jaguars beat us at home, and we split with the Jaguars. This year, we cannot afford to drop games that we should win. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, this is a game that we should win. So the Texans need to show up at home. They need to protect home field, and they need to get this early season win because that schedule only gets more difficult later down the road. Following that up with a back-to-back homestead, and you're going to have the Buffalo Bills coming into town. This is the revenge game for Stephon Diggs. You get to see that storyline of who was the one that benefited the other the most. Did Stephon Diggs make Josh Allen an elite quarterback, or was Josh Allen already an elite quarterback? And this is another potential matchup. CJ Stroud is the top 5 quarterback, and they're listing Josh Allen above him. In my honest opinion, CJ Stroud is better than Josh Allen. He hasn't done it as long, but from what I saw last year, Josh Allen plays hero ball too much. He puts his team in bad positions with costly turnovers. CJ Stroud does not do that. And that could be the big difference in this game. Now we go week 6, New England Patriots in Foxborough. Typically, this is a game that the Texans historically have lost. But this isn't the same Patriots team. You don't have Bill Belichick and Tom Brady over there. We're talking about Jared Mayo and either Jacoby Brissett or Drake May. This is a team, despite that defense, the Texans should handle. Now, the next week, we go week 7 at Green Bay. For the life of me, I can't understand why this was not a primetime game. Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, head-to-head. This is compelling football. This is what fans want to see. These are two teams from the playoffs last year matching up against each other. Two young quarterbacks. And for me, I'm going to be interested to see because Green Bay is not a team that I would sleep on. They have a very talented group of young receivers with Romeo Doubs and Watson down there. Jordan Love. They added Josh Jacobs from the Raiders who replaces Aaron Jones. This team is set. They're stacked. And they're back for more. So it's going to be a tough game right there in Lambeau Field for the Houston Texans. But thankfully, we shouldn't see any snow there. Week 8, we again had the Indianapolis Colts this time coming to NRG Stadium. And this is a game that I'm going to be watching Anthony Richardson in the weeks leading up to this because I want to see how he is developing as a pocket passer. I know he can make chunk yardage plays. I know he can make highlight reel plays. But can he win games from that pocket, throwing the football? That's what I want to see with Anthony Richardson. And more importantly, I want to see just what type of job in this second matchup that D'Amico Ryans uses to keep Anthony Richardson inside that pocket, make him uncomfortable, get after him, keep him from breaking containment, and making plays down the field. And if the Houston Texans can do that, they can win this game. October 31st at the New York Jets, Week 9. Primetime game on Amazon Prime Video. This is going to be one of those things. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be playing? There's a lot of questions leading up to this game. And akin with this turf in New York, at almost the same spot that we were in last year, this is head-scratching for me. I mean, you're going to have us play the Jets 2 years in a row at their stadium. Why not send them to Houston this year? Why do we have to go up there? Why do we have to sit there and put our franchise quarterback on that turf? I don't get that. But as far as the game goes, if Aaron Rodgers is here, I expect this to be a somewhat competitive game. The Jets have made moves to fortify that offensive line. They signed Tyrone Smith. They drafted the big guy from Penn State, Olu Fashanu. So now there's some offensive tackle there. They're not relying on Mekhi Becton. And it should be something to watch. Now the next week, another prime time matchup at home against the Detroit Lions. This one is going to be fun. This is one that I'm really going to watch because there should be a lot of explosive fireworks in this game offensively from both sides of the field. On the opposite side, you've got Jared Goff, you got Amon-Ra, St. Brown, both of those guys fresh off of contract extensions. And that Detroit offense is just fun to watch. And, I love Dan Campbell's quirks and everything like that. But, yeah, that playoff game last year with the head scratching calls in there, that's something that concerned me if I'm a Detroit Lions fan. And I'm looking to see if Dan Campbell rebounds from that. And then we have November 18th, again, 3 primetime games in a row, ESPN this time, at the Dallas Cowboys. The battle for Texas. CJ Stroud and Micah Parsons, who have been doing a tour this offseason, and have put up some pretty memorable videos. These guys are great together. It's going to be something interesting and fun to see how they're going back and forth at each other when they're on the field on opposing sides. So it's something I'm going to watch, but I highly expect that the Houston Texans are going to win this game against the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys have not done anything this offseason except for re-sign Ezekiel Elliott. Not a chance. Week 12, we're going to be hosting the Tennessee Titans. For me, this is a game that the Texans should win at NRG Stadium. No disrespect intended to Will Levis, but you have a new coaching staff. You have a quarterback coming into his second offensive system. You're figuring out that offense minus Derrick Henry and trying to establish a new identity down there. The Houston Texans should win this game. And then the following week, week 13, we have to go back to Jacksonville in December. Hey, the weather's going to be great. That's the least that could be said about that game. Again, this is a game that the Texans should win going into that last 4 games of the season. This is where the Texans get into the teeth of that schedule, and they need to have a nice, comfortable cushion built. If the Texans want to make some noise in the playoffs, home field advantage is the way to go. Texans get a bye week in week 14. Typically, I would like it to be a little bit more towards the middle of the season because of the fact that if something's not going right, you have that week to make adjustments and get that team back on track. When it's later in the season, you're playing 13 consecutive regular season games and you have 4 consecutive preseason games. There's not a lot of rest in there. It's not where I would like to see our bye week placed, but it is what it is. I mean, and we get a chance to get everything set up for that last 4-game spread. Week 15, we come in Energy Stadium and we're hosting the Miami Dolphins. Storyline in here is going to be former 49ers coaches, D'Amico Ryans, Mike McDaniels. Just that track meet that Miami's going to be bringing with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But the Miami Dolphins are a team that have taken some pretty substantial hits at free agency, losing, Christian Wilkins, Andrew Van Ginkel, Xavier Howard. They lost a lot of pieces on the defensive side of the ball there. And they're going to be relying on 2 young guys coming off of season-ending injuries like Jalen Phillips. So that is a game that, the Houston Texans, you need to protect home field. You need to win that game. And they're going to have to do that by shutting down that running attack and making Tua have to throw into some very tight contested windows. Week 16, we go to Kansas City. Potential for cold weather is there. Usually it's gonna happen a little bit around this time where the weather's gonna start to set in there. But this is a game. 1 o'clock p.m. kickoff on NBC. It has the potential to be flexed in the prime time. This is a marquee matchup against 2 Super Bowl contending teams. And the storyline this offseason has been all about the off-field struggles of Rashee Rice. And were it not, I would be looking at this a little bit more, I would say, pessimistically, because you have Xavier Worthy, you have Rashee Rice, you have Hollywood Brown going with Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. And that defense is no joke. So even if we don't see Rashee Rice in this game, it's going to be something. And Patrick Mahomes has a way of getting it done. So this is the game that if you're a Houston Texans fan, you want to watch. This is your measuring stick to see how you stack up against a two-time Super Bowl winner. Next week, Christmas, week 17, at home against the Baltimore Ravens. This is a revenge game. These guys beat us twice last year. They eliminated us from the playoffs. We had to listen to all that smack talking from the Baltimore Ravens fans. This is our turn. This is where we have got to go. And hopefully this team is healthy. And we have a full complement of receivers. We have our offensive line there. And we could sit there and take it to the Baltimore Ravens if this team is healthy. Week 18, we're going to finish the season in Tennessee. That is a game that we should win. This is, like I said, it's a different team. It's not a team that should be expected to beat this year. They could surprise some people, but I don't expect them to be a playoff contender this season. So from what I'm seeing a potential of, I want to say about 13-4 is where I would put this game. The 4 potential losses, I could see Kansas City being one. I could see Green Bay being one. Detroit being one. And the other one being potentially either a Miami or Baltimore. So 13-4 for the Houston Texans would be my prediction for this upcoming season. Is that good enough for us to get home field advantage? I don't know. But it is something that should put us at least around that number 2, number 3 seed. So that's going to be fun to watch. So go ahead, leave me some comments. What did you think? 13-4, is that a little bit too optimistic? Do you agree, disagree with me? Which teams do you think could beat the Houston Texans this year potentially? And which game are you most looking forward to? Because for me, I want to tell you guys right now, Christmas. All I want for Christmas is the Baltimore Ravens to eat that crow. Thank you guys for joining me. See you next time.